Hello, this is Marquise Hardrick, and this is a wrap up of my D-Men dissertation. Call for response. It is my belief that too often men are drastically harmed emotionally, psychologically, and financially during and after divorce proceedings, especially when there are minor children involved. The vast majority of times, the mother is awarded custodial care of the child by default, with rarely any consideration given to the father's ability to take on this role. Fathers risk disenfranchisement as parents and can be reduced to being only faceless money machines for former wives. Lost in divorce are their rights to fatherhood, discretionary control of their earnings, exercise of familial authority, and autonomy to plan and handle their future. The family court system is set up as a battlefield as opposed to a place of healing and justice. Husbands and wives have to vilify the opposing side in order to obtain favorable gains on their behalf, such as custody, favorable time-sharing splits, marital debt distribution, alimony, child support, and etc. This system causes an already stressful situation to quickly spiral into an emotionally draining and toxic power struggle between both parties as they cause and receive emotional damage in the process. Due to gender bias and what the female's role historically has been within American households, fathers have a steeper hill to climb to sway the court system that they should be considered the primary caregiver. He is forced to attack the character of the mother of his children in order to prove why she would be unfit to take care of the children by herself for the courts to even consider awarding him custodial care. The already painful thought of possibly being separated from his family, his children, is exacerbated by the notion of a court system stating by their actions, based solely on this gender bias, he is incapable of being trusted and/or competent enough to raise his own children by himself. Some mothers use this gender bias to their advantage by using the judicial system to extract even more punishment on the father, which creates painful emotional and eventually psychological tears to the psyche and soul of the man. People respond differently to stimuli. In this case, the stimulus is pain. Some men internalize it and some men take it out on others, and unfortunately, some men choose to simply walk away completely from all sources of the stimuli. I believe the system, judges, attorneys, etc., have little or no consideration for the father. At some point, the system creates an environment where the father loses any natural desire to see his children, and because it becomes so difficult, both financially and emotionally, at that point, he convinces himself that the best thing to do is wait until the child is older. The objective of this project is to create a virtual support group for non-custodial fathers that will speak to the emotional, psychological, and financial needs that are specifically targeted toward this distinct group of men. Too often, men's psychological and emotional health is overlooked in American culture, and financial burdens add to the decay of these two variables. The family court system often leaves fathers broken and lean more towards punitive judgment as opposed to figuring out how to fairly keep families connected. Children need to be in an environment where both parents are healthy and strong holistically. This project is about intentionally speaking to the healing of these battered fathers by bringing to the surface some of these deep-seated issues that many have tried to suppress, and give them voice, language, hope, and direction. My hypothesis is that non-custodial fathers do not have an easily accessible support group to nurture them as they are being impacted emotionally, psychologically, and financially after a family court decree. My project is to take a voluntary sample of non-custodial fathers and measure their emotional, psychological, and financial health at the onset of joining the community, and again after a 2-month period of providing specific resources that speak to the three aforementioned variables. The data from these two surveys will then quantitatively be compared to see if there was a positive impact during the time period of this study. I used a quantitative research method to test my hypothesis that a virtual community would positively affect the non-custodial fathers participating in the study emotionally, psychologically, and financially in a way that could be quantifiable and related to them being in and a part of the virtual support group. In Colson and Greenwood study, testing the impact of a virtual community on families affected by childhood cancer, they found that virtual communities offered emotional support, informational support, network support, esteem support, and tangible assistance. I tested my hypothesis to see if similar positive results would be gained by the men participating in this study. The methodology used to test the hypothesis began with using focus groups to hear the concerns of several non-custodial fathers. I created a Facebook page to use as a platform to solicit non-custodial fathers within the state of Florida to be voluntary participants in the study. All information was disseminated to the group through the page, and a space for covert intimacy was nourished. Prior to the official launch of the page, a pre and post survey was created to be used as a tool that would show statistical evidence that a shift did or did not take place in the emotional, psychological, and or financial health of the men that joined the community. These surveys were completed on SurveyMonkey and returned to me anonymously. Hidden depression drives several of the problems we think of as typically male, that is, physical illness, alcohol and drug abuse, domestic violence, failures in intimacy, self-sabotaging careers, according to Men's Hidden Depression. 80 to 90% of depressed patients can get relief if they ask for it, and yet the condition goes mostly undiagnosed. Somewhere between 60 and 80% of people with depression never get help. In men, that is in part due to the stigma that mental health is a feminine issue, but also in part due to American culture often fails to identify the disorder because men tend to manifest depression differently than women. Real states that depressed women have obvious pain. Depressed men often have troubles. For many men, ashamed of their feelings and refusing to help, the wimp disease can kill. Men are 4 times more likely than women to take their own lives, according to The Real. I don't want to talk about it. Overcoming the secret legacy of male depression. Men that have gone through family separation are often levied with financial hardships that make it difficult to personally survive. Tied in with the partially relinquishing control of self-determination and attempting to figure out how to reset the navigational system of their life, make them persons of concern for depressive symptoms. The study seeks to identify a population of non-custodial fathers who join the community and inoculate them with emotional support, informational support, esteem support, network support, and tangible assistance. If proven successful, it would be a more accessible therapy tool that could be used. Colson states that virtual support communities have a propensity to be successful because of their constant availability, enables members to access them at their convenience without having to worry of traveling to a meeting which may interfere with work or family commitments. Though it is not the direct focus of this study, a potential derivative could be better relationships between fathers and their children, which could have long-reaching implications for a better society as a whole. The limitations of the study. The significant limitation of the study is the time frame allotted to impact significant movement in the emotional, psychological, and financial health of the community members. If the length of the study was longer, a stronger determinant of the impact of the study could be evidence. Also, a more significant number of community members could be built that would have provided more dialogue and perspectives. Also, there was no way to ensure how often and how much of the resource presented in the community was seen by any given community member. An additional limitation is a limited budget to promote and market the study to obtain a larger population to study and contribute. The limited financial resources to pay the legal and therapy consultants to be fully engaged in the community for answering questions and providing real-time feedback during the study was a limitation. A major limitation was due to the nature of the study. With the participants not being centralized in a physical location, it made it difficult to get everyone in the community to complete the surveys. I used as my main scripture Psalms 133, how good and pleasant it is for brothers to be on one accord. But I also want to add an additional piece dealing more specifically with the social, ethical, and psychological discernment. Cultural shares that emotional behavior is more concerned with the heart, whereas mental behavior is more concerned with the mind. Emotional behavior paves the way for mental behavior. For example, emotional behavior results in the production of sound from crying, lamenting, and the like, whereas mental behavior is not associated with the production of sound arising out of crying, lamenting, and the like. An emotional person behaves like a normal person but becomes emotional at the drop of a hat. A person affected by mental transformations cannot behave like a normal person. The term I use in this study is psychological as opposed to cultural's term mental. What we see what we see though is a person's emotional health paves the way to deeper and long-lasting changes in the psyche and behavior of an individual. In Tuna and Bozo's study, exploring the link between emotional and behavior dysregulation, a test of the emotional cascade model, we see how emotional conflicts can lead to debilitating consequences. In their study of the emotional cascade model, they state, the emotional cascade model posits that the link between emotional and behavioral dysregulation may be through emotional cascades, which are repetitive cycles of rumination and negative effect that results in an intensification of emotional distress. Dysregulated behaviors such as non-suicidal self-injury are used to reduce aversive emotions and distract the person from the ruminative process. Their study shows how unresolved emotional conflicts can continue to play in the heads of individuals and cause them to act out emotionally. I argue that these emotional actions, as it relates to my study, show up in the form of arguments, physical violence, bursts of anger, and other signs of depression. Over time, if these conflicts are not resolved, individuals sink into more serious psychological issues of dysregulated behaviors, in which these men self-medicate, realities are altered, and commit acts to distract them from ruminating. That is, continuously repeating the cause of their emotional discomforts repeatedly within their mind. To put a wrench in the process of the men in this study of emotionally cascading toward this dark place, and or to be a beacon of light for those that are already fallen into this place of despair, was the aim of this project. This project was created to foster a space of freedom and openness for non-custodial fathers that have been involved with the family court system, be it due to custody or child support proceedings. The community was only open to males, and no known females were allowed to be a part of the community. Though the community and the study is centered around non-custodial fathers, custodial and males who aren't fathers will be allowed into the community to assist in order to lighten up the vetting process, and also to allow them to glean potential insights from the discussions. Only non-custodial fathers will be a part of the study's analysis portion. Therefore, everyone within the community will not be a part of the pre and post testing. It was my desire to pre-test 30 to 50 non-custodial fathers before the strategic rollout began, with the final goal of at least 30 post-test received to analyze. At the onset of the project, the focus was on men within the state of Florida. Due to the state laws surrounding family courts, due to state laws surrounding family courts differ from state to state. As the project continued, I realized its impact on men reaching further than state and national lines. It was then that I truly realized the major benefits to having a virtual support group was that geographical distances had no significance, because the issues that these fathers were facing superseded phantasmic lines. The following is a detailed outline of the methodology used and the results of my findings. I chose to use the quantitative research method to test my hypothesis that a virtual community would positively affect the non-custodial fathers participating in the study emotionally, psychologically, and financially in a way that could be quantifiable and related to them being a part of the virtual support group. The research was speculative and would use a participatory method for discoveries that matter methodology to test the hypothesis. The following logic model was used. Situation: non-custodial fathers negatively impacted psychologically, emotionally, and financially due to family court decrees. Input: create virtual communities that provide resources such as words of inspiration, legal information, motivational thoughts, affirmation of fatherhood segments, testimonials of fathers who relate to the struggle, and those that have made it through the struggle. Output: non-custodial fathers will join the community and receive the various messages. Outcome: non-custodial fathers will show signs of a better state of being emotionally and psychologically, and will have a plan of action to better their financial circumstances. The survey questions were based off of research on signs of depression in men. Some of the signs were feeling sad or empty, feeling hopeless, irritable, anxious, or angry, loss of interest in work, family, or once pleasurable activities, including sex, feeling very tired, not being able to concentrate or remember details, not being able to sleep or sleep too much, overeating or not wanting to eat at all, thoughts of suicide attempts, aches or pains, headaches, cramps, or digestive problems, inability to meet the responsibilities of work, caring for family, or other important activities. The analysis was based on quantitative shifts positively or negatively in the sample population between their introductory survey and the exit survey. In the percent difference from the introductory survey column, I notated red if it was a negative shift, and I notated green if there was a positive shift in depressive symptoms between the two surveys. The analysis showed an increase of depressive symptoms among the sample population in 5 areas of the questioning, but there was a shift away from depressive symptoms in 12 areas of the questioning. Therefore, it is safe to conclude that the respondents were in a healthier emotional and psychological state of being at the conclusion of the study. The respondents were directly asked if they believed that the Fathers Matter 2 page had been beneficial to them, and 96.55% answered yes, further allowing me to conclude that there was a positive correlation between the respondents' greater shift away from depressive symptoms and being part of the virtual support group. There was a slight increase and those that were not, there was a slight increase in those that were now adhering to a personal budget, but also an increase in those that expressed difficulty with being able to manage their child support payments and balance their quality of life. This shows that there is a slight increase in the respondents taking action to be better to better their financial circumstances, while being more aware of the role that child support is impacting their financial circumstances. What was learned? One of the glaring observations that I made from the study was the extent to how many of these fathers showed signs of depression through strides. Those strides were made over the course of the study. Approximately half of the surveyed fathers that have had to encounter with the family court system showed clinical signs of depression. This was alarming to me. I was able to learn this because of the surveys. Support of the literature review, and I found Colson and Greenwood's findings to be true. Online support groups may provide a venue through which individuals with similar backgrounds and experiences can both seek and provide support, particularly informational and emotional support. Defining the ministry. This is a ministry that speaks to the brokenness of one of the major building blocks of society, the fathers. More specifically, non-custodial fathers that have had experience with the family court system and, according to the survey, had a negative impression. The group currently only acts in the supporting role of emotional support, informational support, esteem support, network support, and tangible assistance by way of a virtual community. It is understood that social support has been described as social network. It is understood that social support has been described as a social network's provision of psychological and material resources intended to benefit an individual's ability to cope with stress. This ministry provides the platform for these men to deal with the stressors that are unique to their struggles. The vision of this ministry is to grow into an organization that has power to influence policy makers and scholars to make legislative and social changes that will formalize fathers' rights. One of the most positive things that came out of this was one of the most positive parts of doing this research was that it was therapeutic for me. One of the major challenges was the inability to ensure that members were consistently and actively engaged. This process used in this study can be easily transferred to be used in ministry settings that that desires to be in open contact with the desired populations. The role of the pastor in the church is to take a more assertive role in being support for these men. Success would look like the lowering of depressive symptoms among non-custodial fathers within the community by 25% within a year. My hope in carrying out this ministry, it is my desire to bring attention to the struggle of good fathers and to aid in the formation of better fathers. My core belief is that we as a society, government, and religious institution must implicitly as well as explicitly recognize the importance of fathers within the family structure, and the family court system must do a better job of equitably resolving marriages without creating scenarios where intense conflicts are inevitable. What must be done? Lobbying organizations for fathers' rights must become more visible and active in shaping policies that are more equitable. The future for others. It is my hope that the fight for equality and justice for all people be a fight by all people. In the words of Dr. King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This has been a synopsis of my dissertation. Thank you.